In today's podcast video, we're talking about relationship game changers. The reason why is because there's a lot of content out there of how to get the person, but there's not a ton of content on how to keep the person and how to become the right person in the process. Now, we are going to step into it. I'm going to be very transparent and vulnerable. I'm not an expert in this, but I'm going to talk about all of the things of why in areas I failed, why I think that this is important, and it's just going to be a fun, open conversation. So I hope that you like it. Keep watching. I'm Ricky Jasper, and this is the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. After getting laid off 2 times in 6 months, I realized I had to be chasing a greater vision in my life. I had to be walking into my calling. I spent time building up a successful fitness apparel business, and then now stepping back in front of camera to talk, to speak more, to hopefully inspire you to chase a greater vision in your life. And my goal with this podcast is for us to do it together. So let's make it happen. What's up, and welcome back to the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. I probably have the same shirt that I have on in the trailer that you just saw, but it's neither here nor there, so it's going to be good. Today's video, we're talking about relationship game changers. What does that mean? That means things to do in a relationship to help them grow and flourish. We're actually talking about romantic relationships. Now, before I get into this, I'm going to qualify myself or disqualify myself. Either one. I am recently engaged in the past 2 years. I don't have kids. I've never been married. So I'm not going to talk from a standpoint of, I've been in a relationship for 20 years. I'm going to talk about my experience for where I'm at right now. I'm also not going to talk from the standpoint of someone who has kids or, how a relationship changes when you get kids, because one, that's a disservice to that phase of life that people have gone through. So, that I just want to be very clear on. And then 2, I have not always been perfect in relationships. And I think that is a benefit because I've seen what really doesn't work and then what has been working really, really well. I always like to talk about that and be very open about that because, look, I'm just giving open, honest, vulnerable advice or just a perspective that I hope that you're able to take with you. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it works, I'm so happy it does. So that's the whole thing. Now, why this topic is so important is I see from a societal standpoint that having committed relationships is a very tough thing now, and it's not always a very celebrated thing. As a early 30s-year-old man, there's a lot of content that I see out there. It's, you need to be an alpha male, you need to do this, and there's the quote-unquote red pill community or whatever, and it's like, it's stuff that I don't think that is super beneficial to committed relationships, to growing. If you are in that phase of life and that those are things that you want to do and those are your goals, hey, I have no heaven or hell to put you in, so be it. Like, I get it. Back in the day, I was kind of doing doing those things. But from a content standpoint, I think that it's important to talk about areas that are really exciting in a committed relationship and also how to improve and how to be better at that. So I'll get right into it and just kind of give the backstory of me a little bit and then roll into things that I've really worked on that I hope that help you, especially if you are in a committed relationship or you're trying to get in one or you're really looking for the right person who is going to be in a committed relationship with you. So, for probably the 10 years of life from 17 to 28, I didn't really have a committed relationship. I had 1 or 2 that were short-lived, but it wasn't full commitment. I wasn't all in it to win it at all. I was out there doing my thing. I make jokes from a respectful standpoint, to myself. It's like I owed rent to the street back in the day, right? I was just out in the street doing my thing, really wasn't worried about anything commitment related, was just focused on me, was selfish with my time, was selfish with everything around me. I hurt a lot of people in relationships because I just wasn't present, because I wasn't doing the right things. And there was a lot of things that I was like, I very much regret at this age, right? I learned a lot, but also from learning a lot, I hurt myself in the past. I hurt other people in the past. And that's why I'm passionate about talking about this, is because I see the effects of not doing relationships the right way. I see how it affects other people. I see how it affects other people 10 years down the road. I've had conversations with people that I've dated in the past that I didn't do right by, and it was like very eye-opening conversation. It was like, hey, this is how this has still affected me. And it's just been, a different perspective that I now see. And I'm like, wow, like I am passionate about talking about, how to do things differently. Now I am engaged. I've been engaged for a little over 2 months. I've been with my fiance, Carly, since I was 27. I'm 32 now. I think 27, 28, one of those. Been some time. And our relationship started off rocky because I wasn't fully present in the relationship. I wasn't I was just like, okay, this is here, wasn't doing any crazy stuff that I had done in the past. But for me, I just was always like, is the grass greener if I'm out there, kind of doing my thing still? I didn't have the systems and tools in place to be able to be a person that shows up every day, no matter how I feel, to be the right person for the relationship. And I had to learn that over time. We actually went to couples therapy last year, which was so great for us. And it was more like preventative maintenance. Like, I was kind of going through some things mentally, emotionally. She was as well. And so we're like, let's go to this and let's improve ourselves and, work with each other and figure out a way to, just continue to progress. And the relationship wasn't on the rocks or anything like that. I was like, wow, we really realized that we spend a lot of time learning about our fitness. We spend a lot of time learning about our careers. We spend a lot of time doing and working in our hopes and dreams area. But when it comes to relationships, when you and I are in relationships, I'm saying you and I, you, whoever's watching this, and I am in relationships, that's an area that we spend like the most money in a day to say, I'm going to spend all this on a wedding, right? And we spend the most time with that person, and we're trying to cultivate something and grow something where more often than not, we spend the least amount of time getting the adequate knowledge and doing the right thing. So the effort in this video is to do that, is just to help give a little bit of, knowledge that has helped me. I hope it helps you, but that's helped me. So now, having a house together, having 2 dogs together, getting married next year, if you had told me this 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I'd be like, oh, you're lying. There's no way that's happening. But it's been cool because I've been able to put myself around people who are in committed relationships and seeing how fun it is. And then also seeing the benefit of having someone who is there with you consistently, who's your teammate, who has spent so much intimate time with you, who really pushes you, who challenges you to be a better person, and then who, makes up for your shortcomings. You see all that and you see the consistency in that. And it's like, wow, that's a really, really cool thing. And it's a fun thing because you're able to have that person as a constant and grow with that person. So, in this relationship game changer, there are five key things that I have learned, that I have done, that I am consistently doing, because you have to consistently, like, relationships are work. You have to consistently work at it. It's not like, oh, you do the thing one time and it's like, oh, this is great. It's like you take out the trash once. Well, the next week, like, you have to take out the trash again, but these are things that I have learned that I hope help you. So these are our tips and tricks for how to improve your relationship, what you want to carry into a relationship, what you really want to look for in a partner in a relationship, that I've learned, that I'm still learning. Number one, identify your partner's love language. There's a book, The 5 Love Languages, and I think it's a phenomenal book, because before of reading that book and just my selfishness in the past, I was like, everybody should see relationships and see love language like I do. That's not the case. Everyone is different. I thought that for the longest time I was physical touch, and I'm not that. I am very much in acts of service. So let me run through the 5 love languages to probably help you out. 1, words of affirmation. 2, acts of service. 3, receiving gifts. 4, quality time. And 5, physical touch. So those are typically the 5 buckets people fall into. For me, I am acts of service. And I notice that now because we have a house together. And I'm like, oh, I hate doing laundry. Like, I take the trash out. I'll take the pups out. I do all the other things. I'm like, I just don't like doing laundry. Every time Carly does laundry, I'm like, thank God. Like, she does the laundry in the house. I will not run from that. And I feel so loved every time the laundry gets done, because I'm like, that's an act of service that she doesn't have to do, but she does out of love. And I feel loved because of it. She's an amazing cook. Every time she cooks, I am just in heaven, because I'm like, it's not just that the meal tastes amazing. I'm like, wow, someone took the time out to make me a meal a few times a week. And then at lunch, I have leftovers and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I'm acts of service. Carly is quality time and physical touch. And at the beginning, I was like, at the beginning of the relationship, I was just so busy and I wasn't really present and whatever. So when it came to quality time, I'm like, I might be there, but I'm not present. I'd be on my phone. I'd be thinking about something else. And so part of our, tension point at the beginning of the relationship was, she was like, I feel like you're not really present. You're here, but we're not having enough quality time. And I realized, oh, okay, that's it. And then it was like, hey, when we walk, she likes, when we hold hands, or just, some slight physical touch here and there. I was like, those are things that I had to really work on. And the reason why it's important to identify what your partner's love languages is because that is what is going to fill their tank. That's what's going to get them energized. For me, what gets me energized, the laundry's done. I'm like, okay, I feel loved. I feel good. I get a meal every now and then, like, a few times a week because she loves cooking. I'm like, I feel good. Like everything else, I'm not really worried about. Even no matter how stressful my day was, like I feel loved from the most important person that's in this house, that's in my life, right? So those are the things that if you can identify with your partner and you can really start to feed those things. And now I say this, it might come unnaturally to you. Quality time doesn't come naturally to me. Why? Because I'm really busy with a lot of things. So when I spend quality time, I'm like, I might just want to be my headphones on listening to a podcast, or I might want to be scrolling through my phone, or I might want to be doing something else. But it's like, no, I have to be intentional with setting up time so we can spend quality time together. And it enriches the entire relationship. Now, are there times where Carly might not want to do laundry because she has 1,000 other things to do? Absolutely. But she knows that my love language is acts of service. She sees how much my tank is filled up when those things get done. And it works in a great, kind of union fashion because we recognize and we make sacrifices for each other that overwhelmingly make us feel so much loved and create so much harmony within the relationship and within the household. Number 2, commit to your personal growth. This isn't about the other person. This is about you, because I realized that this was about me. Carly was great. She never required anything of me. I don't know if I've told this, but like when we first started dating, or we first kind of started talking, I told her, I was like, hey, I'm not ready to get in a committed relationship. I'm still out dating. I'm still out doing my thing. I just want to be very honest with you. I was like, if there's one thing that I've learned in the past is I used to lie to people all the time. I was like, I'm not going to lie to you. So whenever you ask me a question, I will be honest with you. And also I'll be transparent with you, which means that I will tell you the truth even if you don't ask. So I'm telling you right now without you asking, even though it's not morally wrong for me to go and date and do, my thing over here because we were not in a relationship at the time. I'm like, I don't want to start off on a bad foot with you because I think that you're just a really good person, right? That's kind of where it started. That was the first way that I started committing to my personal growth. Like, let me be honest. Then when it came to being more present, I was like, I need to be more present. And that was, I need to be present, not just in the relationship. I noticed I wasn't being present in other areas of my life because whenever I was at a place, even when I was working out, I'm like, I'm on my phone scrolling, through sets, or I'm thinking about something else. You have to commit to your own personal growth in a relationship. Like, relationships aren't meant to complete you. Like, they're not. 50, if both people get 50-50, and 50 times 50 is 25%. 100 times 100, what's that, 1? What is that? Is that 1? I don't know. I don't do math. But either way, basically, you can't, having someone else to complete you means that you have a deficiency, and that means that person's sole job is to pour so much into you, and then they deplete themselves. Regardless, you want to make sure that you are coming to the relationship or in the relationship or trying to become whole even while you're within the relationship. And I say there's this notion of like, come to the relationship whole. Not every time you come to a relationship or enter into a relationship, you're perfect. It's just not going to happen. We're never going to be perfect. I've noticed that through mine. There's a lot of self-growth and self-development that I had to go through in order to be the person that I want to be in this relationship. And I'm still learning and growing to be, the person that I want to be down the road as a father and doing all the other stuff. So, but you have to commit to your growth and identify your deficiencies. When you do that, you don't point the finger at somebody else, because it's very easy to point the finger at somebody else and blame them for things that are just kind of not within their realm, or that even if they affect you, just so that you can excuse yourself from growing. That's not going to, over time, improve the relationship. There's a lot of people who are in relationships, and it's like they still act like children in it because they're pointing fingers instead of pointing fingers at themselves and changing the things about themselves that they need to change. Number 3, identify your shared goals and future vision. Ask yourself the question, are you aligned on certain things, on faith, on how you want to develop a family, on your career goals, on your geographic location? Can you support each other in your goals, in your faith, in your emotional stability? Figure out those things and a future vision. When you are with someone, I say I've learned this, but it's so fun learning. When you're with somebody who's a teammate, you're now no longer making decisions just for you. You're sitting back and saying, whatever decision that is made, it affects both of us. So we have to make sure that we are aligned on this decision. Moving to Texas, we had to make sure that we were aligned on it. When it comes to, faith, when we got into the relationship, I was like, oh, I'm I'm a faith-based person, and I let her know, and she was like, and I just didn't think that she was, I just didn't know. And she was like, well, you never asked. She was like, that's 100% who I am, how I have been. Like, it's just nice and refreshing. Like, I want someone that I can grow in my faith with. And I was like, oh, that's great. We're aligned on the big things, right? Whatever your big things in your future goals and your future visions are, make sure that you're aligned on that, because I've gone down the path of, oh, we'll handle it when we get there. And it's like, if you kind of know, most people are kind of stuck in what they want and what they see for their future. And then if you get 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, you can't always say, oh, I just didn't know, or I thought this person would change. Kind of take some things for face value, and then also have some deep conversations and vetting conversations once you get to a level of comfortability, in order to hash those things out, because that will make life a lot smoother as you get into, different phases. And I'll say, as you get into engagement, I'm not going to say kids, marriage, grandkids, I'm not there yet, but from where I was to now, those things have been super beneficial. Number 4, identify your faith level and direction. This might not apply to everybody, but this applies to me heavily. And it's funny because I say that and it kind of sounds contradictory, because how I was for 10 years straight in that realm was not like a faith-based approach to dating or relationships. I'm not one of those guys who's going to come out here and say, oh, this is the way that I did it and how you should do it. And, I was perfect, and, you should, because I don't like that type of stuff, because not everybody's perfect. There's a lot of people have checkered past. I am one of them. But from a faith standpoint, what was important for me was, I was like, I want to improve, right? And I want to be deeper in my faith. And it's great that I have someone who's aligned with me on that, because we can keep each other in check and we can grow together. And also we have a shared vision for, our future and our kids and stuff. And that kind of ties into the previous point of a shared, future vision and goals, because it also helps, dictate our lifestyle. And I think that's such an important thing, is because we have that, we can have deeper conversations about that are not just superficial conversations. And for me, that's very important. And for me, it's like having a shared faith and being able to rely on God, and being able to pray with someone, and being able to really, even when things aren't going well just in life, be in the trenches with someone and have somebody say, okay, I'm going to pray with you. We're going to talk about this. We're going to, those type of things, that's very important to me. If you very much value that and someone doesn't value that, and they've let you know they don't value that, it's not that it's bad, but it might be that you're probably going to hit a little bit of friction down the road, because you want to go one way, they want to go another way. And if that's something that's very, very important to you. So it's just something, to have a conversation about, to put on Front Street. I think that's important. It's been vitally important for me. Last, and number 5, appreciate the small things. I don't take for granted that Carly does the laundry. I don't take for granted all of the little things that she does, right? I don't take for granted the little notes she writes on my lunch when we live in the same house, and she just puts my lunch together and puts it, in the fridge with a note. Like, I don't take these things for granted, because I used to. And because I was so selfish, and in the past I would date people and they're just like, I'm doing X, Y, Z, all this stuff, and like you don't even notice, you don't even like notice, you don't even say thank you, but let alone you don't even notice. And I realized how much hurt I caused. And so one thing that I've focused on, even that was also at the beginning of the relationship with Carly. And so one thing that I focused on is not taking those things for granted, not taking little things, and not only not taking it for granted, acknowledging them and being on the lookout for them. It's like, if I tell you to look for the color red and look for the color red and do that for 60 seconds, you'll go through the day and you will spot red everywhere, and you'll notice it on places that you didn't see. Like, that is how appreciation works. If you start focusing on the small good things that are happening, you're going to notice more of the small good things. I notice now, I don't say all because she does a lot, but like little things that I just used to not pick up on. I pick on, like, when did that get taken care of? How did that, or whatever. And then I'll ask them, like, did you? And she's like, oh yeah, no, I did that. And it's like, wow, it's because now I've trained myself to really look for that. And it makes you just look for the good. And when you're with somebody, you want to look for the good in them. There's a level of bad in all of us. There's a level, like, you'll disappoint your partner. I'll disappoint Carly. She'll disappoint me, like, because we're not perfect. But if we're always looking for bad, you're always going to find bad. If you're always looking for good, you're always going to find good. And if you train yourself to look for good and find good, even in a bad situation, you're going to be able to look at your partner as a teammate and say, okay, I'm locked in. I have who I need to be with, and we are going to focus on the bright things throughout our day and really try to stay there, to stay in that mental space. Are you always going to be able to do that? No, but more often than not, are you going to create a habit of doing that? Absolutely. So to kind of wrap this whole thing up, from relationship game changers that help me, again, to qualify myself or disqualify me if you don't like listening to it. 32 years old, have a fiance for the past 2 months. We've been dating for, I think, 4 years before. Don't shoot me on this. Very checkered past when it came to relationships. I was just kind of out in the street doing my thing. I hurt a lot of people, had a lot of conversations with people that I hurt just by, the way in which I acted, how I wasn't present, how I was out doing my thing. Learned how much that was not a good thing, and also went through a whole lot of remorse about doing things the wrong way, which made me drastically change my ways and the way that I view relationships, which has led me to 5 things that have really helped me in the relationship. And number 1, identify your partner's love language. Figure out what fuels them, what boosts their love tank. Number 2, commit to your own personal growth. You are not supposed to have someone complete you. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because that means that they just pour their energy into you all the time and then you drain them. Make sure you're coming to it or growing towards being a whole person. They're coming to it or growing towards being a whole person, so you can have 2 wholes instead of 2 half people in there. Doesn't make sense. Number 3, identify your vision and your shared goal of the future. Talk about that stuff early on. Make sure you're aligned, because if you're not, you might not be the right people for each other. Number 4, identify your faith level or direction. This applies to you if faith is a big component of your life. You want to be with someone who matches that, or who has a true desire of matching that. If it's not a big thing for you, then that point doesn't apply to you, and that's cool. And number 5, appreciate the small things. When you look for good, you will always find good. Our word of the day is work. Why it's work is because relationships are work, but I'm not going to say work in a bad connotation. I'm going to say work in a good way. When you go to work every day with your relationship, you are going to work to make it better. You are excavating the bad things. You are planning the good things. You are working, and you are really growing and cultivating something beautiful. So relationships work from a good standpoint. You're going to end up being a better person. You're going to work on yourself. You're going to work on your relationship. You're going to appreciate the small things. All of these things might be something new to you, might take work, might require effort, energy, time, attention, all that. But it's good stuff. I promise you it's good. So I hope that you enjoyed this message. If this message helped you out, please like, comment, share. I always say send a carrier pigeon. What I'm trying to do with this podcast is make sure that we're getting practical, real advice that really, truly, genuinely helps. If you have other things and other tips that you think are helpful that I missed out on that have really helped you, comment them. I want to create a community that everybody feels like they have a say, they have a voice, they're sharing opinions, because it helps us learn, grow, and maybe these tips don't work for you, but somebody else has something in the comments that they can share and contribute that work for you. That's what I'm trying to cultivate here. So that's the end of the podcast. See you next time. Peace. Thank you all so much for watching the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, send it to friends, use a carrier pigeon, do whatever you have to do. We hope that this inspires you to chase your greater vision in your life, and for us to continually and consistently do it together.